Now let's take a minute to catch our breath and get ready for a thought-provoking panel presented to you by Wells Fargo. As you know, there have been a lot of conversations this past year about financial inclusion for people of all ethnicities and abilities, and I'm looking forward to this timely discussion. And with that, let's check out this panel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the No Barrier Summit. My name is Dennis Molinas, and I'm the Global Accessibility Business Support Consultant for Wells Fargo. Our panel's topic theme is Making Financial and Employment Inclusion Work for Everyone. We define this theme as supporting efforts to help more people who are currently unbanked and underbanked have access to affordable banking services, since being banked promotes financial health and stability and supports meaningful participation in our economy. Employment inclusion includes supporting accommodations and accessibility to provide employment opportunities to people with disabilities and to enable them to achieve economic independence and professional attainment. So today, we're very fortunate to have a distinguished guest panel share their experiences and expertise and thoughts on the topic. Our panelists include Andrew Holbrook, who is the president of the Disability Connection Employee Resource Network at Wells Fargo Bank, Annette Howard, Human Resources Consulting Partner at Wells Fargo Bank, and Michael Morris, Founder and Senior Strategic Advisor at the National Disability Institute. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for being here. So my name is Dennis, and I am an Asian male. I have black hair. I'm wearing a blue shirt, and I am in my home office. In my background are some books and a whiteboard. So let's address the topic of financial health. Financial health is an important part of our well-being, and in a perfect world, all of us would have access to the financial institutions and tools to help support our financial health and achieve our financial goals. Yet there are many communities who are currently underbanked or unbanked. According to the National Disability Institute, some 20% of households headed by a person with a disability are currently unbanked. So Michael, that's 1 in 5 households in the disability community that are going without financial opportunities. Are there segments of our community with disabilities that are affected even more so? What historical context can you share with us?
I appreciate the question. Let me first say that I am a white male. I have gray hair, I have glasses on, and I am wearing a blue shirt. Let me answer the question. The disability population is a very diverse population. They're diverse in many ways. Population represents people with a variety of disabilities. Some are visible, some are invisible. The disability types range from physical, sensory disabilities to those that are more invisible, people with learning disabilities, people with mental health challenges, and others. I think what is a common denominator among working age adults with disabilities is the disproportionate number who remain living in poverty. More than 60% of adults with disabilities are considered low, moderate income, and 40% of people with disabilities are living in long-term poverty. So we have some extreme challenges, both related to assets as well as income production, very high unemployment rates. But we're talking about a very diverse group of people, although sharing this common challenge of really trying to find a pathway to greater economic security and financial health.
Thank you, Michael. That's quite profound. So 60% of people with disabilities live in poverty then?
Correct.
Thanks for your response on that. I'd like to shift the next question to Annette. Annette, there exists opportunities to address gaps in employment for people with disabilities. According to the Department of Labor, unemployment in people with disabilities is about 2 times higher than those without a disability. From your professional or personal experience, can you please talk about or provide examples of how third-party organizations such as the ADA or other legislative efforts help to close this gap?
Yes. Again, I'm Annette, and Let me say that I am in my home office with red walls. I'm wearing a red dress. My hair color is brown with golden highlights, and I have hazel eyes, and I'm wearing glasses. Good call out about ADA as I sit here and think about this question, because I don't want to date myself too much, but in the early days of ADA, I recall that there was a shortage in talent, just as it is today. And what I did was contact a hearing impaired organization to tap into that market. And for me, I was the first person in our organization to look at a different channel for hiring. It was really rewarding for me as well, because what I did was I studied sign language behind the scenes to be able to converse with the individuals that I hired. And our company also started offering classes for people who wanted to, and it really increased the population. I will also say that there are third-party organizations that offer coaching for people on the job. For some, there may be a 4-week learning. It may be extended, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, to ensure that the transfer of knowledge. I've had an experience with that as well, because I have an intellectual disabled brother who I'm a caregiver for, and he has a coach for his job. And what that does is shorten the gap of learning, or ensure that there isn't a gap in the learning of the task that he needs to do. I'm proud to say he's very well thought of in his work. The other thing is companies have taken is the application process. Pre-COVID, I guess I would say, when we were coming together, there are business cards that may have Braille. There may be information so that if you need assistance, you can ask for it when you apply for jobs. So companies are learning, and even doing partner with programs like No Barriers to help those that have visible or invisible disabilities understand that we're a company that we want to be very inclusive of who we hire. It doesn't matter, and we can work together to get you employed.
Thanks, Annette. Great response. Along those lines, let's talk about employment. And I'd like to direct this next question to Andrew. So Andrew, employment can often be a key lever in gaining financial stability. Yet once one is employed, it can often be challenging for anyone to navigate the workplace. Can you please talk about the concept of the Employee Resource Network and how they can support opportunities for people with disabilities in development and inclusion?
Absolutely, Dennis, and thank you for the question. I'd like to first describe my surroundings and what I appear as. I am a white male with salt and pepper hair. I have green eyes. I'm wearing a white shirt and a gray blazer. I'm currently sitting within an office space here in downtown San Francisco. And behind me, there are some street scenes, including buses moving in the background here in San Francisco. Speaking about the Employee Resource Network, so I'm real excited to be the enterprise president of Disability Connection, the Employee Resource Network here at Wells Fargo, focused on people with disabilities and people who support those with disabilities, whether they be allies or caregivers. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the disability community is the diversity of disability. I think some of the previous speakers, Annette and Michael, alluded to those. I myself, I wear hearing aids. I was born with a hearing impairment and speech impediment, which I continue to work with every day. And I think that the skills that I bring, the different skills that I bring and that I developed as a result of having a hearing impairment, or something which honestly give me strength in terms of being able to do things that other members of the organization or employees don't bring. Likewise, there are other people with disabilities or caregivers or allies who bring a different perspective. And the one thing that I fundamentally think, the one thing that an employee resource network provides is that sense of shared community. that safe space into which people can talk about the different experiences and inform not only their lives, but the company. And that's something which I pride Disability Connection with is connecting what we do as employees to the overall goals as Wells Fargo. Because just as Disability Connection and Wells Fargo's employee base is a diverse organization, so are the customers and clients that we serve. And so the better we are able to infuse our day-to-day operations, our engagements with one another, with the insights that an employee resource network provides as a community, the better we are at delivering on customer needs and the healthier we will be as a company. And that's what an employee resource network does at its utmost. Thanks for the question, Dennis.
No, thank you, Andrew. Just building upon your response, so the Employee Resource Network at Wells Fargo, the Disability Connection ERN, can you talk about maybe some of the activities it engages in or some of the things that it does?
Oh, okay. Do we have a couple extra hours? I joke, but honestly, it's an organization of over 9,000 employees, which is unique in terms of as I think about companies, smaller businesses, not the size of Wells Fargo, that the community is rather diverse and it brings with it a lot of I would say diversity in activities, diversity in communications. And let me just speak about specifically that this month we are in the midst of Disability Pride Month. This is July, and it's in part a hallmark recognizing the enactment of the Americans with Disabilities Act that Annette alluded to earlier on July 26th. As part of that, we engaged in a robust social media campaign that was linked both in internal and external communications, bringing in perspectives around disability and how it informs not just the employees that are here at Wells Fargo, but also our customers and clients. We're looking forward to having similar communications and highlighting our engagement internally at Wells Fargo in October with Disability Employment Awareness Month, because as Michael alluded to, and I think others have alluded to, the disability unemployment rate is twice that of those people without disabilities. And this is something that is a core mission and something that we will continue to focus on in October. So thanks for the question, Dennis.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andrew. And building upon that response, you talked about the unemployment rate among people with disabilities. So for people with disabilities in the workplace, or for others who have other diversity dimensions, they can potentially face multiple challenges in their respective workplaces. What's your advice for someone who's hoping to bring their whole selves to work?
Well, I would also invite my colleagues to comment on this. It's important to engage with your internal communities. It's important with employee resource networks to the extent that your management is an important space. It's important to bring what you can of your authenticity to the group. And I find that this is easier and easier to do every day. It's not perfect. It's not always the best. But as a community, we have some responsibilities to the next generation of leaders to bring that authentic selves to the workplace. And I'll just give the explicit example is a specific example of where the reason why I make the suggestion is that I am, as I mentioned earlier, white male, graying graying temples, and the perspective that I bring to the workplace is very different than I would say some of my African American colleagues, some of my colleagues of Hispanic and Latino backgrounds. All of these are dimensions that I can't bring to the space. But when I know what those intersectionalities are, it makes me a better employee, makes me a better person, and helps me think about the holisticness of what we deliver both as an employee resource network, but also what we as Wells Fargo, serving 1 in 3 households in the country that serve a diverse number of households, can do better.
I just want to add a little bit here. Intersectionality is so important because that's the uniqueness of the individual. So through that, we and the Employee Resource Network, we hope to empower our employees, at least at Wells Fargo, to have courageous conversations with your managers and your leaders. I've been fortunate that the leaders that I've had through my career, I can do that. But sometimes those conversations can be tough. And if it's nothing but just explaining what you need to do your job, what you need to be successful, and just have a conversation, because it's a two-way street is the way that I view it. The leader doesn't know if you don't tell the leader. So it's real important that people have those courageous conversations so that you bridge the gap of difference. It's going to always be there, but you'll be surprised how much commonality that you have.
Andrew and Annette, thanks for your perspectives and responses, in talking about employment inclusion. I'd like to shift the focus again to talk about financial inclusion. And so the next question I'd like to direct towards Michael Morris. So Michael, where are the biggest opportunities for financial inclusion and what barriers stand in the way?
That's a great question. Again, for people with disabilities who have lower rates of participation in the workforce, that means less income production, less assets. I think the number one issue for people with disabilities and financial inclusion is improved access to credit. We know from our research that almost 1 in 2 working age adults with disabilities do not have access to credit via credit cards or a bank, and that compares substantially higher levels of lack of access to credit as compared to people without disabilities. So I think the opportunity is not just access to credit. I think it's also about improving understanding about budgeting, about informed decision-making when it comes to savings, hopefully even more in terms of investing and different ways of wealth creation. So people with disabilities have too often been ignored as a market sector by the financial community. So there is a need for increased and improved, responsive and accessible financial products and services as well. So those are some of the things I think about to improve financial inclusion. And I think it becomes an even greater problem, as we were just talking about, for individuals at the intersection of race or ethnicity and disability, as well as gender. Women who are part of communities of color, who are also disabled, have the lowest net worth, have the least access to credit, are less likely to be employed. And so the opportunities for them in terms of financial inclusion deserves even more attention.
Thank you, Michael, for that response. I mean, given that, then, all those opportunities and challenges that exist, can you talk about what organizations, for example, such as NDI, what are you doing or what other organizations are doing to address some of these challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, great question. National Disability Institute, we're in our 16th year. We started because of a belief that more could be done to stimulate conversation between the disability and financial communities. Over the past 10 years, we've conducted over 50 what we call is asset development summits. And that's a fancy name for bringing together leaders in the disability community in different cities across the country, sitting at roundtables in discussion with bankers, with members of the financial services industry, to talk about what could we do more in terms of collaboration, whether it's investment or lending or service under the Community Reinvestment Act, or it has to do with more outreach more intentional activity to help people with disabilities access credit and utilize other financial products. I do think more conversation, more intentional relationship building between the disability and financial community would matter a lot. But I'll add one other, which you, of course, we touched on already, and that is employment in the financial sector of more people with disabilities, as is being done at Wells Fargo and other banks, recognizing that people with disabilities are an asset to the workforce, bring different dimensions, different decision-making, creative problem-solving ability. And I think when we see more people with disabilities within the workforce of the financial services community, I think products become more responsive. The accessibility of websites become more responsive. The opportunity intentionally to reach and be in conversations regularly with disability-related organizations begins to happen more often as well.
Michael, thanks for that. I couldn't agree with you more on your response about including people with disabilities in financial services employments. Thank you. So to Andrew, Annette, and Michael, thank you all for your great and very detailed and insightful responses. For our No Barriers audience, unfortunately, we're out of time and we've only scratched the surface on the topic of financial and employment inclusion. We'd like to thank you for watching and hope you enjoy the rest of the programming and events here at No Barriers 2021. Thank you again.
Wow. Thanks so much to each of these amazing panelists. This was definitely an eye-opening session for me. And thank you again to Wells Fargo for being our presenting sponsor.
When things tend to happen that are outside of our control, we tend to go to the place of like, we've lost everything, we don't have anything. And the one thing I've always said, I've learned through my own experiences in life, is you still have one thing, and that one thing is the choice. But how do you respond? Like, it's on you. At some point, you got to stop blaming the outside world. At some point, you got to stop pointing the finger at everyone else, and you got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing or what am I not doing? Because there's this space in between when the challenge happens and ultimately the outcome. There's a space, and the outcome is determined by what happens within this space. That's determined by you. This is a ritual. This is a routine. This is a mindset that every single day when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, I probably slept bad last night. I probably am waking up worried about what happened yesterday or how it's gonna, spill over into the day and tomorrow possibly. Forget all that. Right now in this moment, I'm going to prepare my mind. I'm going to strengthen it. I'm going to kind of put some armor around it and just prepare it for whatever this day is going to be. But it's going to start with me simply just saying to myself, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be in control. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to have faith. I'm going to believe. Like, that's literally the things that I say to myself.
My name is Barbara Henry. I am coming to the No Barriers Summit from Rhode Island, and I am blind. When I was born, my spinal fluid leaked, and it was going to my brain, so I could have had more complications. It could have affected my mobility in terms of walking, speech. So about 1.5 years ago, I started challenging myself and doing things outside of my comfort zone. And my friend gave me an email about the No Barriers Summit. The world's not going to come to me. I have to get out into the world. I have to be a part of the world. If I don't come to this event, the event's not going to come to me. Coming to the No Barrier Summit, I was just so excited. The short time that I've been here so far, just meeting various people and talking to them about their life stories, it just represents just inner strength and perseverance. This weekend with the No Barriers Summit, I climbed a rock wall, which I have never done, and I reached the top and rung the bell. I went scuba first time in a swimming pool. I went sailing. I've never sailed before. And today I rode a bicycle outside for the first time in my life. That was great. I just took off. So that was a lot of fun. I didn't understand why everybody was like, wow, you never rode a bike before? It didn't hit me, you know, I was with a group, and everybody just stopped and said, you never rode a bike? And then when I got on the bike, I wasn't even scared. I just did it. I just rode and I felt like an eagle. I felt like I was just soaring through the sky. And I'm not ashamed at all of being blind. I'm not. But in that moment, I didn't feel blind. I feel this experience has made me to focus on looking forward and not to focus on challenges that have occurred in your life in the past. Just try to focus on the present and be positive about the future.
Our lives are kind of like a storm. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a total whiteout in the mountains. Now, I can't see anyway, even in good weather, but my friends, somebody needs to be able to see and they can't. It's just total whiteout. Well, what is the tool that you use to navigate? I think our vision is like an internal compass. It guides us through that storm. It tells us where we're going and why it's so important that we get there. I think vision is figuring out what grows the light inside. I think it's really about connecting with our very deep core values and understanding what those values are. When we live in alignment with those values, that light will blaze and it will show us the way. And it's not about what's out here, it's about illuminating what we have inside.